Hey, it's Paul from howtoplaybassdotcom. In today's Bass for Beginners tutorial, we're going to look at the bass line to You Send Me by the late great Sam Cooke. Now, these Bass for Beginners tutorials, the reason that I'm doing them is when you're a beginner, when you're new to the bass, you pick the bass up, you learn how to tune the bass, and the next things you should be looking at doing is working on fretting hand position, learning how to fret a note, how much pressure to apply to get a clean note, and then plucking hand stuff, learning how to pluck the note, get a nice sound. These tutorials are designed for the next phase, which is coordinating the two and applying them to real-world bass lines. So that's the reason for this sequence of Bass for Beginners tutorials. They're really easy bass lines which will give you instant real-world applications of these techniques that are new to you and help you familiarize yourself, practice these techniques, put them into practice in real-world context. So that's what we're doing with these tutorials. If you are interested, if you are a beginner and you are interested in making further progress and following that kind of philosophy, click the link underneath the video, take you to a page which will teach you about or tell you about a course I've developed for beginners which follows this philosophy to the nth degree. It's a 30-lesson course. You can click on the page and go and see the syllabus as well, so you can go and see what's included. So if you're interested, go and do that, and then come back here and we'll crack on with You Send Me by Sam Cooke, and we'll look at the verse 1 format, which is how the bass comes in the song. Just heard the verse with the band in a box sketch track. It's very straightforward, 2-bar pattern repeated 4 times. The 2-bar pattern, the notes are G, 5th fret of the D string, E, the 7th fret of the A string, A, 5th fret of the E string, D, 5th fret of the A string, and then the triplet is D, E, F sharp, 5th and 7th frets of the A string for D and E. F sharp is the 4th fret of the G string, 4th fret of the D string, excuse me. And the rhythm is just simply it's a variation of 2-beat rhythm. If you saw the Love Me Do tutorial, another in this Bass for Beginners series, in the 2-beat style the bass plays on beats 1 and beat 3, and again be aware, as with Love Me Do, we drop out on beats 2 and beats 4. So to tempo be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, etc. So that's the kind of the rhythm that we're going to use. That's the 2-beat rhythm. In this case, you can have instances where you play the 2-beat rhythm where you're playing on beats 1 and beats 3, and you don't have the rest on beat 2 and beat 4 like we've got in You Send Me and like we had in Love Me Do as well, the previous Bass for Beginners lesson. But for this lesson, that's what the basic 2-bar pattern should sound like. That's used in verse 1. Now, this verse 1, is the verse format you use when following it is another verse. The verse 2 format that we're going to move on to is the format you use just prior to the bridge. So let's move on and look at verse 2. Just heard verse 2 with the band in a box sketch track. Very similar to verse 1. The first 6 bars are the pattern that we looked at in verse 1. the 7th and the 8th bars are where you've got the variation. We go G, 5th fret of the D string again, C, 3rd fret of the A string, back to G. And play that twice in that last bar. So it's very straightforward. Those last, I'll play the last 4 bars. 2, 3, 4. Okay, and that takes us to the next section, the bridge, where the lyric is, first I've thought it was infatuation, and the bass line kind of plays some, the bass line's quite stabbed and staccato. We'll go and listen to it first with the Band in a Box sketch track, and then we'll talk through the notes. Okay, you just heard that bridge with the Band in a Box sketch track. It's fairly straightforward. Note this time we're playing quite short and staccato notes. So instead of playing, we're playing, so we're definitely getting some space between the notes. The first 2 bars, which then repeat, are A, D, and G, G, G. Note locations: A is the 7th fret of the D string down to D at the 5th fret of the A string, then 3 Gs at the 5th fret of the D string. So that repeats. Then in the 5th bar we get a repeat of the 2 A's and the D. The 6th bar we've got a variation, we go from G to F, 2 E's. G's the 5th fret of the D string again, F's the 8th fret of the A string, 2 E's at the 7th fret of the A string, and then on the start of bar 7 we're going to stab on A at the 5th fret of the E string, and then the final bar, which leads us back into the pattern, is 2 A's, 7th fret of the D string again, and then D, D, E, F sharp, which you should remember from the verse. So that's the bridge. Fairly straightforward, but it's really crucial to get that, to hear some rest between the notes. So if you're playing it like this, that's wrong. Got to get that crisp. And there are 2 ways you can do it. One, you can either choke the note by bringing your fretting hand off the fingerboard, so you play the note and then you simply raise the finger so it's still touching the string but not pressing it to the fretboard. Or the other option is you can play the note with your right hand and then mute the string with your right hand as well. Or you, when I say right hand, I mean plucking hand. So, or you can do it with the left hand, the fretting hand. Either way works. Whichever way you choose depends kind of on your fretting system and what you're more accustomed to. But it's important you do that. We only need to look at one final thing, which is very straightforward, and that's just the variation of verse 2 that's used in the last part of the song where the song ends. So let's go and look at that very last verse. Just heard the last verse with Band in a Box. It's a variation of what we've done before. Very simple. The first 6 bars we've got this pattern, the basic pattern that underpins the song. And then the 7th and 8th bars we've got a variation of the pattern at the end of verse 2. We go from G to C and then we play G, D, low G. So G to C, is the 5th fret of the D string for G, 3rd fret of the A string for C, back to that G at the 5th fret of the D string, then we're going to play D, the 5th fret of the A string, and then that sustained low G, last chord of the tune, it's the 3rd fret of the E string. So if you put those parts together, you'll be able to play through this song. It's very straightforward. As I said in the intro, perfect for beginners. It's one of those songs where you can start applying the plucking hand and the fretting hand techniques that you're learning and applying them to a real world bass line. And because this bass line is so easy, it makes it a perfect choice for doing that real world application of those techniques. So put those bits together, play through the song, learn the song, repeat it several times so you've got it down, and then move on to the next one in the sequence, and there'll be more in this sequence coming up, or as I said in the intro, click the link underneath the video and go and have a look at my Bass for Beginners course.